Well, hey everyone. I love babysitting my grandkids, but there is no getting around the fact it's a lot of work. And I can't tell you how many times I've been unprepared for what to do. You lose practice, if you don't do it all the time. Hi, everyone. I'm Andy Asher. I'm editor over here at bloomerboomer.com. And more about my stories of babysitting in a moment. But September is big, as we are kicking off the first full season of new shows with amazing celebrity hosts and thought leaders, authors, and visionaries with ideas and discoveries for all of us who are over 55. Now, we are starting off the season with author, child care expert Florence Ann Romano in a series called Calling All Grandparents, Your Help is Needed. And the needed is in all caps, okay? It's urgent. So Florence Ann goes by the Windy City Nanny with more than 15 years as a nanny and has loved every minute of working with the most amazing children and families. Now her goal is to empower parents and grandparents to let love in, build their village, and ask for help when they need it. Now, starting today with why grandparents are the most sought after members of the village. Now, if you want to be part of this, amazing journey with bloomerboomer.com and with our community here, you can register on the website for the newsletter and qualify for member benefits. All the shows are live on your favorite social media channel and on bloomerboomer.com as well. And you can ask us any question you want. So if you prefer to binge watch at your own convenience, you can visit your favorite host at their webpage on bloomerboomer.com. Please like and follow us if you can, and on your favorite social media, on the channel there where we live stream on Facebook and YouTube and Twitter. That's my gaming channel. Not too many people probably here are using that, but I like it. Instagram and bloomerboomer.com. So in a moment, Florence Ann Romano on starting her season called Calling All Grandparents, Your Help is Needed. But first, get acquainted with bloomerboomer.com, with a platform that will launch you toward the most fulfilling life you desire after 55. Florence Ann Romano, great having you here today, and I am so looking forward to your season series. How are you doing anyway?
I am so thrilled to be here. What an honor. Thank you for having me.
Well, the title, for the season, Calling All Grandparents, Your Help is Needed in capital letters. It couldn't be more appropriate during the times that we're living in. It's almost the whole game has changed, not in the way we want it to change, but it has changed.
It's changed so much, and our lives have changed so much because of COVID and so many idioms. But the common denominator, I think, for everybody, whether it's in the United States of America or otherwise, the common denominator is childcare. What happened to childcare during COVID-19? And the truth is, we've seen the evolution. We've seen, no one being able to be around you in the very beginning to states opening up and kids going back to school, but still seeing that the landscape looks different in regards to how we're taking care of our children and who's helping us take care of the children. And the common denominator you're seeing is that a lot of grandparents are really being pulled back into the fold. And it kind of makes me laugh because it's not this novel idea that grandparents are helping raise their grandchildren or being a part of their child care. This is something we've seen old school. Grandparents were the original village, and now we're seeing them play a very important role in children's lives again. But how they are playing a role in their lives maybe has changed a little bit, but also maybe not. But the idea of why grandparents are so important in the grandchildren's lives, that's something that so interests me, because I come from a past of living with her grandparents growing up. I had my parents, but then my mom's parents lived with us too. We were an old school Italian family. So I've seen both sides of it. I've seen what it's like to have outside help, and have seen the wonderful consequences of having your grandparents be part of your lives. And so I really want to spend the next few weeks talking about the amazing bond that exists between grandchildren and grandparents, and why the help is so needed, because it is going to make a difference in so many different capacities of the child's lives and also the parents.
Yeah, and that's a point that you brought out that I hadn't thought about, but really this is a great opportunity, even though it's forced upon grandparents in many cases, to bond more closely with their grandkids. So there's an advantage to that for sure.
Right. And the bonding with grandparents, it's not just these old people, that you have to be nice to because they're old. This idea of grandparents, it's been redefined. It's not these like old people that you're pushing around, in a wheelchair or something like that. And, you're taking care of in that way. Grandparents have this, unbelievable zest for life and young energy, and desire to be a real strong and profound presence in their grandchildren's lives. So I kind of feel like we need to redefine grandparent in some sort of way, because it doesn't have the old school connotation attached to it anymore. And being a grandparent is really cool, and it's a huge blessing. And what grandparents are able to do in terms of influencing their grandchildren and helping them understand, history in a different way, and also how culture has changed. And there are so many valuable lessons to be learned from the experience of your grandparents. And then also what grandchildren are teaching their grandparents, and what the children of those grandparents are teaching them as they're raising their children, as they're developing this enormous village, as they're figuring out what is important to them in terms of values and in terms of the dynamics of those families. So there's many different things to unpeel, or not unpeel, rather different things to peel back here when it comes to the role that grandparents play.
Yeah, and as for me, the times that I spend with my grandkids are the best times of the week. It's a lot of work, a lot of things unexpected, but in the end, it's fun. And so I after I'm done for the day, my work with them, I take a moment to breathe, But as a ways of introduction, tell us how you became known as the Windy City Nanny. I know part of the reason why, but maybe a little bit more beyond the Chicago background.
Sure. So yes, I hail from Chicago, where the moniker came from, but spent 15 years as a nanny and worked for many different families. And it's funny, the reason why I became a nanny, I always get this question, what was the moment you knew that, you wanted to pursue that? And the truth is, when I was a little girl, I used to ask my mom to take me to the hospital to have my baby. And what I meant by that was to please take me to the toy store so I could have her buy me a baby doll. And then I would come home and I would make birth certificates for all my baby dolls. I mean, I was baby obsessed from the time I was a baby myself, I think. And so I became a mother's helper at the age of 11, and then transitioned into being a babysitter like a lot of young girls do, and just really fell in love with the profession, and wanted to take it to another level. And I never lived in homes with families. I never did that. But I did experience so many different family dynamics and children and values of families. And it just really carved out a place in my heart that was for no one else except for those children and those families. And it taught me a lot about myself, and it taught me a lot of lessons that I probably would have not learned at that in that profound way unless I had been exposed to children and families in such an intimate way. You learn about caretaking in a way that is so hands-on and so rich in blessings. And also you start to learn so much about yourself in terms of how you feel about discipline and how you feel about creating a bond with children and learning to gain their trust and gain the trust of parents, and compassion and kindness and tolerance and all of these different things. And I really learned and discovered that through my time as a nanny. And when it was time to retire from being a nanny, I always use the Mary Poppins phrase, you stay until the wind changes. And the wind changes for many different reasons. But for me, it was time to move on to other things in my life, but I still wanted to stay connected to parents and children. And that's what led me to writing my children's book, Nanny and Me, to help children understand the transition of being cared for by their parents to being cared for by a nanny or a caretaker. And then being able to use this platform about childcare in the new millennium, about how to parent through the childcare crisis, and what are we doing to solve the childcare crisis today. Over 64% of families in America today have childcare, have a nanny. So that means that other people are helping us raise our children. And I really want to make sure that we're on the right side of the statistic one day when it says our children better or worse off for having other people, for having outside people help raise them. And I believe that we are going to have children that are better off for it, but we need to do the work to make sure that we're setting them up for success, setting parents up for success as they are raising their children. And so that's where I spend my time now, is really talking about the childcare crisis in America and how to help parents build their village, ask for help, and let that love in.
And over this season, the 4 episodes, those of us who are grandparents can benefit by your experience. And I know today's episode is partly an introduction of you, but the name of the episode today is Why Grandparents Are the Most Sought After Members of the Village. The title is very descriptive, but talk about that a little bit more. And I liked your use of the word village, because that really identifies what I think more specifically what you're talking about.
Well, today with COVID, we're dealing with a lot of different financial situations across the board. And, I'm going to say the very obvious thing. A lot of times the grandparents are going to be the financially economical resource for you, because probably you don't have to pay them. Let's put it that way. Maybe you're not paying the grandparents. Sometimes you are. I certainly know families that their nanny is the grandparent and they are paid. And I think that that's fantastic. I'm not saying either way is right or wrong. It has to be the right thing for your family. But the reason why they're the most sought after is because they are so readily available and they want to spend time with their grandchildren. There's a lot of win-wins across the board there. But to go back to my own experience in my life, I'm the oldest of 4 children, and my brother, who's only 17 months younger than I am, has autism. And so, I grew up with a brother, with a sibling with special needs, and then my sisters. And, my mom had her hands full growing up. My dad had a family business and worked crazy hours and was gone a lot, and she really needed the help. And, my grandmother, I'm her namesake, actually, was why I have such an old-fashioned name. She was the love of my life. My grandparents were the loves of my life. They are no longer with us. But they, when they left this world, it left a tremendous void in all of our lives, because they were so intimately involved in our lives. They were my mom's right hand. They were at my doctor's appointments with me. They were driving me around. They never missed an activity that I ever did. They were there to console me when, I was sad about something that happened in school, or where something went wrong, or I needed advice about something. They were there to laugh with me. It was an unbelievable time in our lives, having our grandparents so close. I mean, my Nana and I shared a bed at one point in my life. So this was This was a very special experience for us growing up. And I'm not saying that everybody has to have my experience, that the grandparents have to be as involved with their children as mine were. But I want to put it into perspective for everyone that letting grandparents into your lives in that way can have such a tremendous payoff in the end for your children. You will have opened up their eyes and their hearts in ways that you can't imagine. So that's why they are so sought after,
Yeah.
because the value that grandparents have, it's astronomical and it's unmatched.
Yeah. Well, I know you plan to share, a little bit more in episode 2, but I can you take maybe a couple of frequently asked questions
Yeah.
from our followers? Okay. Well, then we'll get right back with Florence with that. Okay, Florence, we are back, and this one here is from Betty, and she says, it's been really, really hard helping her grandkids who are doing this remote learning. Yeah, that's they're doing that in one of the school districts here, and so I can see that could be a learning experience, isn't it?
Oh gosh, you grandparents, I feel for you. I do, because here, I mean, I if someone came up to me and was like, "Here, help this second grader with her math right now on Zoom," I'd be like, "I'm out. No way. Can I don't think I can do that. I'm not smarter than a second grader. I don't think I can do it." So, grandparents, I give you so much credit, and it is a struggle to try to learn this technology and help the kids through it. My best advice for you, not just to survive it, but is really set realistic expectations for what can be done right now with this remote learning. Kids are all in the same boat. They're all behind. They're all struggling to be able to retain information and learn at the same pace that they were in school. It's just not feasible. We cannot replicate the environment that you have in school online. You just can't do it. So if you're helping your grandkids right now through Zoom or whatever the virtual way is that they're learning, be kind to yourself through it. If you can take breaks with them. If you see them getting frustrated, maybe pull them away from it. If you see yourself getting frustrated, maybe take a minute to collect yourself, but realize that you're not supposed to know how to do this. This is new for everyone. This is new, not just for you, but for the kids and for the teachers. So put realistic expectations on it right now about what you can and cannot accomplish. It's not up to you, grandparents, to be the reason why they're going to be successful in school this year. Absolutely not. Take that burden off of yourself now. You're going to do the best you can, and that's the best you can offer right now. The kids are going to do the best they can, and that's all we can expect from them. Teachers, same thing. Best they can, and that's all we can expect from them right now. But make the expectations realistic.
Yeah, and like you say, we're all learning this right now, so no one's an expert on it. This one's from Stuart, and he says his problem is finding ways for his grandkids to exercise. They're so homebound right now, and that's the other part of it. I can see that because here, where I'm living, a lot of the play areas are closed off.
Right. And it's the same thing even here in Chicago. There's just places you can't go. So if they can't be running around outside like they usually do, I think this is a great place to get technology involved. Kids are plugged into technology all the time anyway, so might as well make it worth their while to actually get them moving. They don't have to do one regimented hour of exercise in order for them to get their steps in or what they need. I think there's a way to make that fun. Maybe you break it up into different increments during the day, maybe 15 minutes here, 15 minutes there, to give them a break from Zoom, to give them a break from the virtual learning. Maybe you do a little, something on, there's so many different apps you can do now and download that can get kids moving and grooving moving. And you could do it together. You could do something online together. But also just making, some fun out of it, maybe doing like a mini scavenger hunt around the house. Again, it's not running laps, it's not that they have to be jumping on a trampoline. It's just to get them off the couch and moving around a bit. So just finding different fun ways to do that, or even just having them play in general, just using their imaginations. Like I said, doing something like scavenger hunts, or even going outside and playing, on the driveway, or I used to make this town full of chalk. I used to do a chalk town where I draw like different businesses, and then we pretend that we owned these different businesses and do things, and riding our bikes like through through this fake town, like that we were practicing at stoplights and stop signs. And it sounds silly and it sounds trite, it sounds small, but I'm not a believer in anything having to be extreme. I believe things should be a balance. I believe you should live somewhere in the middle, and it should be moderation. So just try to find ways just to get up and move, and it doesn't have to be regimented exercise.
Yeah. So my techie nerdy side comes out, and I start thinking as you're talking, there's got to be an app for that, right?
There's a ton.
Huh?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Tons.
Yes,
Tons of apps.
Absolutely.
Yes, tons of apps out there. You go on, and you could even just, if you want to, I think it was Stuart that you said, Stuart, you could just go on and type in, when you're looking for an app, the exercise apps for kids, go on Google, even type that in as your keywords, and it will populate a bunch of options for you. There are so many. I mean, there's one I can tell you right now called Stay Healthy, that helps kids learn about nutrition, but there's also ways that they help kids like get active during the day as well. And so it's an educational app. There's a component to exercise, but it's more an educational app to help kids understand nutrition and exercise and healthy eating and healthy lifestyle. That would be something to look into. Stay Healthy is the name of it.
Let me get one more in. This is Beth, and she's wondering about scheduling. She says, I'm never sure from one week to the next whether my daughter needs me to babysit. She says it's hard to schedule her personal, life and so forth. In a way, I guess I can see that endless loop. You have to work out a schedule, because otherwise it'll drive everyone crazy.
You do, and I would say that, Beth, you should really ask your daughter or your children to give you a schedule, something that you can depend on a little bit. Like, even if it's going to be certain days of the week, even if she doesn't know what hours during those days, at least you could say, maybe like, I know on Mondays and Thursdays or Tuesdays and Wednesdays, I'm going to need you, but maybe I'm not going to know until the night before, what those hours necessarily are going to be. Or I know I'm only going to need you in the mornings, only in the afternoons, whatever it might be. So maybe you can't get like the full spectrum of what exactly she's going to need and when, but if you can have isolated days, I think that would be very helpful. So requesting that I think would absolutely be within the realm of possibilities, and you should absolutely ask for it.
I agree. I mean, that's only fair. Okay, Now Florence, she's going to be right back and tell us about next week's show, episode 2, how to straddle the line of being a disciplinarian and a doting grandparent. We'll be back with that. People find out more about you? I know you have a website and that sort of thing.
You could go to windicitynanny.com. I've got tons and tons of blogs. If you grandparents are looking for things to do with these kids that you feel like, I don't know how to entertain them, I have tons of blogs for you to help, kind of spark your imagination and give you kind of every bit of information you could ever want about how to entertain those kids. And I talk a lot about COVID too, and kind of how to get through these times. But if you're certainly looking for ways to keep them occupied, I've got a whole host of things for you to do. And then I'm also all over social media. So Instagram, Facebook. If you have any questions on Instagram, please DM me directly. I'm always happy to talk through things with you. And my book is also available on windycitynanny.com.
Oh, fantastic. And tell us about next week's show, episode 2, how to straddle the line of being a disciplinarian and a doting grandparent.
It's hard to think that you're going to have to actually discipline those sweet grandchildren of yours, because you just want to be the fun one. You don't want to be the bad cop. You want to be the good cop. But if you're going to be taking a role in their lives where you are more of a caretaker, discipline's a part of it. And we're going to talk about how do you have this conversation with your children, so the grandparents and the grandparents and the grandparents' children, the parents rather, are going to be on the same page. And what battles you're going to pick. Not everything's an argument. Not everything's a problem. We're going to talk through kind of things that you should address and things you shouldn't, and then start to figure out how you can still maintain that doting grandparent role while also playing a disciplinarian in their life.
Okay, good lesson to learn. Florence, I want to thank you so much. I'm looking forward to the next show.
Can't wait. So thrilled to be here. Thanks so much again for this. This is such an honor.
Well, thank you all, and Florence, the Windy City Nanny. You can find out more about that on Facebook, YouTube, on bloomerboomer.com. And if you like this, please like us on Facebook and follow us. Meanwhile, I want to say so long. I will see you on the next show, and we'll look forward to it then.